Erin Lawler Patterson, the goodness chick. I'm an addictions counselor, motivational speaker, author, and parent coach. Join me on the journey of navigating the joys and pitfalls of life, addressing parenting, giving back, mental health, addiction, and relationships. If it takes a village, then join me as one of those villagers. Villagers wanted. I got to tell you, man, I am really tired. I'm tired of flipping on the television, and yet again, there's been another school shooting with kids running out of their school, crying, trying to get a hold of their parents on their cell phones, parents having to bury their kids. And it's something that I can't shake, which I'm glad I can't shake, but the more I think about it, it's something that just simply infuriates me. And I do believe in my core that it's safe to send our kids to school. There's millions and millions of kids that go to school every day. And really, there's a greater chance of death from slipping in the bathtub or losing their life in a motor vehicle accident. But the reality, without question, is that there's escalating occurrences of school shootings across the United States compared to any other country across the globe. It's absurd, and it's heartbreaking, and it's loss of life that's unnecessary. And I believe that one of the greatest factors that I'm going to focus on today that contributes to this tragedy is I believe that mental health is something that is not addressed in the way that it needs to be addressed. And it's something on a county, state, and federal level that has really taken a back seat in our society. And it's something we have yet to hold as a high priority, as the priority that it needs to be held in. We're just in a different day and age than we were in 10 or 15 years ago in terms of the hurts and the level of mental health issues that our kids are being faced with. Whether it's the consequences of our kids being bullied, the abuse that might be suffering from at home, from neglect, or their own chemical imbalance that they're struggling with. Here's the deal. When these hurts go unchecked, when they go unaddressed, the pain and the sickness within them really only festers. And so this is one aspect of it where when it's not addressed, the number of our kids that are suffering from mental illness, honest to goodness, is only growing. The number of our kids from elementary, middle school, and high school that are exposed to addiction within their home, it's only growing. Abandonment, heartache, and it increases with as time's going on. The number of our kids that are hurting is heartbreaking. And what I'll say is, okay, we start at home where you have young people growing up in hurt, and you have those who are not given the proper resources of counseling. And I do believe there's still a crazy, heart-wrenching, heavy stigma that's so unnecessary when it comes to mental health. And I think that is a huge part of the problem, that we need to remove this barrier that there's something wrong with them if they receive counseling. That's insane, because the reality is every single young person, I do believe at some point with different things that go in life, can benefit from it. Now you add on top of that heavy issues, it's a disservice not for them to receive counseling. It's not fair. On the other end of it, we, in a lot of ways, have begun to rely on our schools to do things that they're just, honest to God, not equipped to deal with. And I'm going to explain. Because we have, whether it's guidance counselors, whether it's, psychologists, or substance awareness coordinators, SACs, that are in schools, there's, honest to God, there's not enough of them, because they're being hired to patch and mend far too many kids than what's humanly possible. And that's really, I do believe it's different than even 10 years ago, because the number of kids that are hurting is off the charts. And in the course of an 8-hour school day, say you have 1,000 kids in a school and you have 6 guidance counselors, you have, one or two or three, psychologists, or a SAC. it's kind of like saying, here, there's two people. We're on a street, and there's 5 homes, and 3 of the homes are on fire, and we're going to give you guys 4 pails of water each, and you've got to run all your might, and you're going to put these fires out. You're going to put them out, and you can come back and refill on water. Well, how realistic is that? And what happens is that these people on the front lines, dude, it's tiring, man. It's heart-wrenching. And you're trying to serve, and you're trying to protect, and you're trying to love, and you're trying to identify, but it's literally impossible to provide the level of services that they need. And this gets us to the point of those young people who are identified, trying to provide outside services, lead them to that can be really challenging, because a lot of times the services just are not accessible. They're simply not accessible. Every state, every county is different, but we need to kick up like a gazillion notches that counseling and long-term counseling is accessible for our kids. Elementary, middle school, and high school, it is there. And if somebody's identified as having some severe issues and we need more than outside counseling, then those services are something that can be utilized. And I know this costs money, and I know this takes time, but I'm going to tell you, we're in a battle right now that we are not sending sufficient resources, sufficient people to save lives. And it's crazy and it's unfair. And you have mental health people that are just like burning out because it feels like you're treading water in the middle of the ocean with bricks, 15 bricks in your hands, and you're not allowed to let go of the bricks. Otherwise, you're out. You can't let go. But there's nothing there to send you a lifeline. Like, what? That's crazy. And so this is what we're doing to those working the front lines, and what we're doing to our kids, because there's not enough money invested, because there's not enough resources. It's so easy for kids to kind of fall through the cracks. Or to try to connect them with services that simply there's just not enough of. Right now when we're in this opiate epidemic and trying to connect the proper treatment for kids who are falling apart, or their siblings or their parents, and there's not enough beds. There's not enough detox centers. There's not enough, and it's like, what? It's crazy. And in the United States of America, for us to be falling short is unacceptable in my mind. And we go on the other spectrum of it. I know in the recent shooting in Florida, one of the things that came to surface is that this person, the shooter, was identified by the FBI, but nothing was connected. And I don't have a whole lot of information with this, but my thought is, kind of tapping away at Google, like, how many FBI agents, how many people within our communities, police officers, troopers, are their job is in assisting with when somebody's identified, and what do we do when they're red flagged, and how do we get them away from people that they can do harm to? There's not enough of them. So it's all these different angles of, we're simply in a place that we are lacking resources. We're lacking providing the right support system. And it's not fair, because the problem is, and even on a school end, there's so much red tape. Even when a kid is identified, getting them to an outside service, meaning if they need a different educational service provider because they're red flagged, they're displaying and demonstrating different things that make people uncomfortable. Getting them outside of and placed out of a school can be really almost impossible. There's something wrong with that. And part of it is, I do believe we're kind of in a Sue crazy generation that people, everybody's watching their back and everybody's nervous. And what if we, what are we doing that's in the best interest of our kids? And so I'm throwing a lot of different things out there today, but I'm so saddened and I'm so sick of where we're at, that we're only pointing fingers. We're not making any progress. And so what I say to you is, the people that we elect, they need to be shooken up. It's calling our legislators. It's making contact with them. Where are we putting our money? It's reaching out, into our school districts and saying, what are we doing to really provide the necessary resources? And maybe that's voting yes on a budget that increases services, because everything starts with money. If we're really honest, I mean, how much money are we investing into putting, mental health professionals within our schools and mental health professionals within our communities, and the right law enforcement into connecting and identifying and red flagging people who need to be red flagged and being removed from being in a position to put someone in harm's way. So it's getting on the phone, it's being active, it's being vigilant, it's speaking up and saying enough is enough. Mental health is something that we need to become more comfortable with. We need to remove the stigma with. We need to open our eyes to, because I got to tell you, man, we have so many kids who are hurting and so many kids that are falling apart. And I just feel like we're just not doing enough. And I can tell you, like, as an educator, I've had situations and I've had times that I've worked with students that I've got something in my gut telling me something. And it's like, it can be scary at times. And there's not enough resources that we're in a position that we can get the right services to our students. And I can tell you, for any educator that's out there, tell them thank you, because it's not an easy job. And I can tell you that there's not an educator out there that in the past few days, when they're walking into work, they're not saying a prayer for safety. They're not having a flash of like that this could happen at my school, because it's just human nature and what we think. And I do, again, believe we are safe in our schools. But this rising occurrence is not okay, and it needs to stop, because any life that's snuffed out, any life that's taken, it's too many. Our kids should feel safe going to school. Our kids shouldn't be, flinching when they hear certain sounds, or having, these feelings when different stories come on their phone feeds with news, and it's not fair. It's a day and age that's scary for so many of our kids, and it's heartbreaking. And so I say, dialogue with our kids, keep dialoguing, trying to put their anxiety at rest, and giving them the power that, if they see something, going to an administrator, going to a counselor, speaking up, and knowing that we're going to fight for them, and getting on the phone and saying, we're contacting this legislator, we're contacting this person that was voted into office, and we're saying enough is enough. Because I do believe in our heart that our voices still matter, but our voices have to be collective, because I believe that's where change begins. And we just have to shout, and we need to be vigilant, and we need to be consistent, and we need to not give up, because every single life matters. And I say keep on keeping on, and keep fighting the good fight, my friends. Peace, love, and goodness. If you enjoyed today's show, I encourage you to subscribe to Goodness Chicks podcast and pass it along to your friends. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and have a great day.